Lori Loughlin. I seen her on the news recently, this whole college bribery scandal thing, and she looked ridiculous. And a woman in her position can't be made to look ridiculous. Now she should just get the heck out of here. And then you have Jussie Smollett, who knows what the kid's name is, but he looked just as ridiculous too. And let me tell you, a man in his position can't afford to be made to look ridiculous. So he should just get the heck out of here too. And the only empire he'll be running from is the one that strikes back.
This is Strong Fellow Podcast with your hosts, John Christopher. Ready or not, here we are.
So I wanted to give you my own personal take on what I think is happening and what I think the bigger issue is regarding these celebrity scandals that have just come out in the news. And I think it speaks to a bigger issue. And I want to ask the audience here, with all that's going on in the news, being reported about these celebrities, is there another set of laws for the rich and powerful as opposed to the common person here, as opposed to, just the average American citizen? And what we're seeing here is the powerful, the rich, the famous, seemingly living by another set of laws. And that's just not right. I think the more affluent the person, the more that they think that they're entitled, the more that they think that they're above the laws, above reproach, because they're a TV personality or they're constantly in the media in some way, shape, or form. But the laws in this country, they're supposed to be applied to everyone equally. And when they're not, when there's a disparity or a wide discrepancy between the rich, middle class, and poor, that you have these three groups living under a different set of laws, then that's only paving the way for a gradual societal breakdown that ultimately gives way to lawlessness. You have to hold people accountable. Whether they're rich, they have $1 billion in the bank, or they have not even 2 nickels to rub together. That's the sort of system we need to stick with. No one can be beyond reproach when it comes to the law and the legal statutes in this country. I mean, for years, people of great influence, affluence, very rich, famous, and powerful have been able to get away with things that the common folk haven't been. And I'm talking about the middle class, the lower middle class, and the poor. And it's just that, yes, money talks, but these people are of the mind that because they have so much money, so much dollars in their bank accounts, that if they just throw their resources at people, their money at people, then problems just go away and take care of themselves. In some respect, that is true because, it does take money to grease wheels. But if you're going to use what you have unethically or illegally or unlawfully, then expect to get caught. Expect to have a consequence behind that. And I think that the powerful, the rich, and the famous, they don't really comprehend that because they think that money buys them immunity in all respects. And it doesn't. And we're seeing 2 good examples of that with Miss Loughlin and Mr. Smollett. 2 separate cases. And with regard to Miss Lori Loughlin, listen, I really loved her in Full House as Aunt Becky. I used to tune into that show all the time and watch it. But me liking that show, others liking that show, doesn't give her the right to do whatever she wants, including and up to defrauding the college admissions people and also illegally bribing her daughter's way into college. What she did was essentially she got her daughter into USC, but in the process, how many other kids who actually had the grades, had the SAT scores, were well qualified to get in there, didn't get in because Olivia Jade was pushed in by her mom and her money? It's not right. It's not right, and she should be held to account for that. And it'll be interesting to see how that all unfolds. Now, then you have in Chicago Jussie Smollett of Empire fame, and what he did was really inexcusable. And inciting a race war through a hoax, feigning that you had gotten attacked and jumped by these white conservative people, and when it comes to light, that the story was all BS and that you made it up and that you paid people to do a number on you so you make it look authentic and then go to the police and cry racism. Man, that is illegal on so many levels. What gives you the right to do that, Mr. Smollett? What gives you the right to use your position, that situation, to, number one, further enhance your career and make you well known in the media, and secondly, and more importantly, add fuel to the fire of divisiveness that is already well apparent in this country? Sir, you have no right to do that. And the truth has come out about that. But in this particular case, due to, I guess, the politics of Chicago and him knowing some powerful people, the charges were dropped on a state level, but there's yet to be a decision made on the federal level because there was some sort of federal felony that was committed by Mr. Smollett. I don't have the specifics on that, but it is just really, really irritating and very discouraging too, how that's all playing about, because Mr. Smollett has set a precedence where other people can try this sort of thing, which is ultimately going to lead to a huge increase in false accusations about racist instances or racially motivated attacks. And what's more is it's going to damage the credibility of people who actually go through those horrible situations, those instances of racism or racist attacks. And that's going to essentially, I think, lessen the probability of them being believed, because you got guys like Jussie Smollett doing improv classes on the street where he plays the victim. And my friends, money talks. Money talks. But it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't. Each man and woman alive in this country should not, despite their socioeconomic condition, whether it be rich, middle class, or poor, be subject to different standards in the law. Because ultimately, if we keep up that practice, then we're only hurting ourselves in the long run. And that's the truth. But getting back to Lori Loughlin's case, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Whether she gets off, she has to pay a huge fine. And it ultimately amounts to a hill of beans or a slap on the wrist for her. My guess is it might really, in fact, go down that way, unfortunately. But with regard to the Jussie Smollett case, man, that was such a huge fumble in our justice system, and it speaks to the corruption at the local level in Chicago. And really, shame on them. And I know that the people who arrested Jussie Smollett, that chief of police there, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he's infuriated along with a lot of the other cops out there. And I could totally understand his disposition, because he's just trying to do his job, uphold the law. And a lot of good cops out there in Chicago are wanting to do the same thing. And they find that their hands are tied when the media gets involved or the politicians get involved. But, just a word of encouragement to them. We do support the efforts of upholding the law in Chicago, as well as every other major metropolitan city, as well as across America. So, guys, keep up the fight there. Don't quit. Don't get so easily discouraged. But yeah, this all sets a dangerous precedence. And especially now that it's out in the open. I mean, before it was probably taboo for people to talk about. Everybody knew in some sense that the rich use their money and their connections and their influence to grease wheels wherever they can, whenever they can. And now that it's in the open, it is creating such a upheaval because what these people were doing is unethical, and it begs the question as to what other people are doing with their money, with their power, with their fame and influence as well. So this is going to be something to keep an eye on. And this might as well have set such a brush fire that really begs us to look at what's really going on. And let me tell you something. Even though that there is a double standard, I believe, in this country for the powerful, rich, and famous, there should not be. There should never be. Everyone should be held equally accountable under the law, because that's how a civilized nation is supposed to operate. And to all those with money, power, and influence, from celebrities to politicians to well-known people, the law applies to you as well. All right, everybody, thank you for listening to today's episode of Strong Fellow Podcast with your host, John Christopher. It has been a pleasure to be here with you today. Big shout out to Kevin MacLeod, who provides our opening and closing theme. And until next time, ready or not, we'll see you then.